Hey, this is Todd Evangelist, and I work for the Imperial County Office of Education, specifically with the Strong Workforce Consortium program, which has a high school version and a middle school version. Today in our episode, by the way, this is episode number 6, an ongoing distance learning series for Strong Workforce for middle school students. We're focusing on middle school students, in particular students who are in 8th grade and going into high school in just a few months. And so we have a short video just to kind of talk with you about some of the things that we hope that you can explore while you're in high school. So once again, many of you are hopefully experienced with this curriculum called Building a Bridge to Your Future. You hopefully were able to get at least maybe exposed to it a little bit before the end of school this year. But if not, don't worry, you don't need it for today's lesson. We are going to talk a little bit about the career technical education. In fact, I have a PowerPoint. Let me share my screen real quick and show you that PowerPoint real quick. I'll be up in the upper little left-hand corner, I think, or right-hand corner to you, however it shows up. Once again, this is from Imperial County Office of Education, Strong Workforce Programs Consortium. Episode 6, High School Cte Pathways. We are in that book, Building a Bridge to Your Future, which I alluded to earlier. And today's focus is on career technical education, CTE is what we commonly refer to that as. And just to let you know, these courses allow students to combine college preparation and then career exploration for real world experience in the workforce and helping them develop their skills. That's essentially the definition of CTE here in Imperial County. And just to let you know, here's another thing that is important. We're going to talk about it here in a little bit and how it pertains to when you go to high school, the type of classes that you take, because CTE courses are sequenced. That means you take one after the other. And they're sequenced in a way to create pathways that focus and prepare students for college and career opportunities. It's really important that as an incoming freshman that you understand the concept that CTE courses are related to each other. You don't want to take one and then hop over to the other one unless for some reason you feel like you definitely don't want to do this anymore and you definitely want to start something else. There's value in being able to complete a sequence. So we just wanted to kind of mention that to you. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And before we get going on what we're talking about today, this comes from that last chapter in that book, if you remember. The chapter is chapter 12, and it's getting ready for high school. And here's our goals for today. Goal would be able to identify a CTE pathway that interests you. So there's no wrong answers. Interests you at the high school you will attend. So you could be going to any high school here in Imperial County. All of them offer CTE courses and sequenced in CTE pathways. And what we're hoping to do today is give you a little heads up of what they are. And by the end of the session, what the goal would be is that you would be able to review your high school and say, this sounds interesting to me, and then maybe explain a little bit why that is. And then I know in every group that we have, there's always like overachievers. So if you're an overachiever, then here would be an additional goal. We're going to talk about something called A through G classes and requirements, and we're going to do that right now. And an overachiever goal would be to list how many A through G classes you're planning on taking in high school per the letter. There's an A, B, C, D, and they all stand for something. We'll talk about here in just a quick sec. So think about that. There's a chart of them, and think to yourself, if you want to have a conversation with your parents about what is your goal for going, for taking A through G courses in high school, and how many you might take for how many A's would you take, how many B's would you take, how many G all the way through G. All right, let me now, if I could, reference something in these two links here. I'm holding up here, if you can see in that little small window, I'm holding up I've gone to this webpage, Cte Offerings 2020, and I've printed this off. And so what I want to suggest to you is essentially, you can pause this video when this video is over real quick, go to this link that we have here highlighted. It's this bit.ly Cte Offerings 2020. You can go there. We'll go there in just a sec. And then this is where that document resides. It's a link to essentially this document. You don't have to download it. I downloaded it and printed it. But you can go in there and look for your high school. In fact, let's go there right now. By the way, I also listed Imperial County High School counselors. Well, there's a list of counselors countywide that are on this link right here as well. We think it's a good idea that if you're interested in a CTE pathway, it would be a good idea for you to have a conversation with your high school counselor. So that can happen anytime during your freshman year. So if you're arriving to high school and you're trying to figure things out, at some point soon, you're going to be assigned a counselor. And it would be good during your freshman year to have a conversation with your high school counselor about a CTE pathway that you're interested in. And we're going to talk about it today. All right, so there's some links to those counselors if you want to get more information on the counselor at your upcoming high school. All right, so if I click on the link Cte Offerings, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to try to stop sharing my screen and go to that link directly. Give me a second real quick. This is what will pull up if you click on that link. It is, this is actually the PDF, so I downloaded it. So you can download it if you want. You don't have to. Read it from the link itself. This Imperial County's Career Technical Education CTE Offerings. Let's explore a little bit. A quick little table of contents. And then this gives you a little idea about the work that we do with Strong Workforce. Nothing that as a student you have to memorize or anything. But then here we begin to discuss the CTE pathways. This is not just here in Imperial County, this is statewide. There's 15 identified industry sectors that we've developed here in Imperial County and other places as well, that we've developed pathways around here and at your high school. So those give a little bit of a definition on what those are. And then I like this page, it's specific for middle school students. So, that first sentence is what I like the best. Early is better. As a high school student, sometimes you might not have enough time to take enough classes to complete a CTE pathway. But if you plan ahead, like you're doing, we think that's the best approach. So I encourage you to review this particular page. I think it's like page 6. And then that leads into this thing I referenced earlier, A through G course requirements. Here's the deal. In high school, it is the expectation that every high school student, when they graduate, that they would have taken all of these A through G course requirements. And here's what they are. You may have seen this before if a high school counselor has come onto your campus to talk to you about things. And we just have listed them. So A is for history, B is for English, C is for math. And then you can see over here on the right-hand side, this is the number of years that are required in order to be A through G compliant when you graduate. This is what essentially universities are looking for. But we here at Imperial Valley feel if that's what a university wants, that's what we want for all of our students, whether you plan on going to a university right out of high school, or whether you plan on going to a community college, or whether you're going to go into the military or get a job right away. These are great pathways and great courses to take while you're in high school. So we feel that we have a high expectation for all of you. So we want everybody in high school to complete these requirements. All right, I'll stop preaching here. So you can see history, 2 years, English, obviously that's a 4-year high school requirement in California. Math, 3 years is required to be A through G, but we really recommend 4. Now your high school may only have 2 years or whatever, but this is the A through G course requirements to be considered college ready. Lab science, 2 years required, but we recommend 3. Foreign language, 2 years required, but especially here in Imperial County, everybody speaks Spanish, so we kind of have a little bit of a leg up on that. We recommend 3. And then when it comes to visual and performing arts, 1 year required. Personally, I think it'd be good to take 2. And then college prep elective, that's something you can take anywhere that's considered a college prep course. You can take 1 year of that as well. Now, so that's the A through G requirements. So here's what, at the end, kind of for you overachievers, look through that list as an extra bonus question here and think to yourself, how many years of history are you going to take? Obviously, you have 4 years in high school. How many years of history is history something that really interests you? Then maybe you take 3 years. You don't have to name the course. English, there's no brainer. You're going to have to take 4 of that. Math, are you going to take 3? Or are you going to take 4? Lab science, are you going to take 2? Or are you going to be an overachiever and take 3? We think that it'd be good for you to have a bit of a plan for that. So if you download this, or if you print this, this would be a good thing to take into your high school counselor when you start planning your schedule, either for your freshman year or your sophomore year after this upcoming year. All right, Cte Offerings. This is essentially what this document is all about. It puts together every high school in Imperial County. And in fact, if I go back up to the table of contents real quick, you'll see that we've listed every high school and what page they're on. So you see Brawley right here is on pages 6 through 7. And that's where we're going to be at right now, just to give you an example. But every single high school here in Imperial County is listed in this particular Cte Offerings course book. It's kind of a one-stop shop for every high school. And so you don't have to be going abroad, but here's an example of what Brawley has going on for them. They have a whole bunch of different industries that they've selected that they want to create Cte Pathways for. That's that second column. So when you go on to step on the Brawley Union High School's campus, you can take different Cte Pathways. The first one, just I think it's done alphabetically, is in ag, and so you could do ag business pathway. Here's what that is. There's a 1, 2, 3 step to that. Some Cte Pathways have 3, some only have 2. This one in particular, obviously it only has 2 because it starts with a 1. It doesn't have a concentrator course, which is a 2, but it jumps into a capstone course, which is the final course in 3. So introductory course takes a year. For Brawley, that's called Introduction to Agriculture. Concentrator course, they don't have one in this particular pathway. You can see other Cte Pathways do have them, but for this particular one, they don't. And then the third year, or maybe I guess since they don't have a second one, you can do this in your second year. This is a capstone course. This one, to complete this pathway of agricultural business, you would take the course called Ag Communications. So when you go to Brawley Union High School, if you look up the catalog of all the different classes that you could take at Brawley High, Ag Communications is in there. Now, as I look at this, they say they only list it every other year because there's not a whole lot of, there's not a gazillion kids taking every class at every school. So you may need to plan that. So you could take this your sophomore year and then jump right into Ag Communications your junior year if they are offering it. But if they're not offering it, then maybe you have to wait till your senior year. So that's a good example of why you need to have a conversation with your high school counselor. All right, so I don't want to over-explain this, but what I want you to do is find your high school. This is for all the Brawley people. Here's this is listed off, obviously alphabetically. So Calexico's next. You can see all the different Calexico pathways that are listed here. I'm just picking one that has a couple. So in welding, materials, and joining, they do not have an introductory course. They jump right in with welding, and then they finish it with something called welding, advanced welding. Once you do those 2 courses, then you complete your pathway at that high school, Calexico Unified in particular. All right, you can kind of scroll down here to Central, Desert Oasis, probably Southwest is coming up after this. This is a good example. Let's go to patient care. This is a pathway that they have at Southwest High School, and it starts here. They don't have an introductory course on this. They jump right into something that is kind of a second level concentrator course, and it's called medical terminology. Now, if you remember, we were talking about the A through G. They have a little G listed here next to this course because G means that this course actually qualifies. If you go back up to the G, this course actually qualifies as a college preparatory elective. So good for them. So you can you can essentially kind of knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. You can take the course and take the and hopefully complete the pathway, but then you can also take that course and have it complete for your A through G pathway. So I don't want to lose you, but just know that you can take medical terminology as a course, and then you can take any of these. I guess there's 4 courses here listed, and that will complete a pathway that is referred to as patient care. So you can take medical terminology and then ROP dental assistant or community health worker or sports medicine or first responder. So different people connect with different things. So what the challenge is for you is to figure out what do you want, what interests you the most, and then you can select that particular one. Here's the other interesting thing. You see this little check mark right here? That check mark means that that high school has that course articulated with IBC. What does that mean? That essentially means that if you take that class at this high school, then at the end of the year, you can take a test out at IBC, and if you pass that test, then you get a credit for taking that class at IBC. You get like a college transcript. So talk about killing two birds with one stone. Or in fact, in this case, you can kill three birds with one stone. You can take the course and complete the pathway. You can have the articulation with IBC, and so have it count for IBC, and then you can have it be a G course, and so then it helps you complete your A through G completion. So obviously, it's probably a very popular class at Southwest since it does all those things. All right. So each high school is listed here, and so when you download this, you can find your specific high school and find, look at here, they have barber and cosmetology. That's at Imperial Pathways. Of course, the school that we have here, charter school here at Imperial County Office of Ed. Imperial High has, oh, this is something that interests me, education and introduction into education careers, and then jumps over to a capstone teaching application, and you can complete a pathway in teaching. Here's a smaller school, San Pasqual Valley, probably one of the smallest schools here in Imperial County. And so it stands to reason if you're a small school, then you don't have quite as many CTE pathways because you don't have as many students to fill up all the classes. So at San Pasqual High, they have one pathway in ag science, which makes sense. I think everybody here in Imperial County has an ag science pathway. And so they have three courses here. They have an introductory course, an ag concentrator course, and a capstone one. By the way, that's an animal science one. That's a fish farm that they have out behind the high school. It's really cool. So at that particular school, they have one pathway. So if you remember, let me stop sharing my screen and go back to the PowerPoint that we were at earlier. Let me see if I can get to this. If you remember, here's what my goals were for you guys today, is that if you could be able to identify a CTE pathway that interests you at the high school you will attend. So if you're going to a high school, it's a really large high school, and they have multiple CTE pathways, it might be a little bit easier for you to pick one and say, I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to do this, but if all these pathways that are listed for me here at my high school that I'm going to be attending, this is the pathway that interests me the most. So I want you to tell us what pathway that is and why does that interest you? Give me a couple sentences, maybe a paragraph about why you have an interest in that particular CTE pathway as opposed to all the other ones. Now, if you go to San Pasqual or a smaller high school and there's not a CTE pathway that you are interested in, you can certainly pick one of those and then write a little bit about the one that they actually do have. Or you can expand it if you want. You can look at some of the other high schools and think to yourself, well, if I went to these high schools, these are the things that I'd be interested in. And I wouldn't be upset about that, because that could be an opportunity for you to advocate for that particular pathway, or an advocate for a way for you to be able to gain some of that training. At the end of the day, the goal of a CTE pathway, career technical education pathway, is to give you skills and exposure to a career field that interests you. You can do that in school, and that's really enjoyable to do it in school, but you can do that in a number of different ways. So we're glad that you are taking the challenge to make your future something that is planned out by you. All right. Once again, this has been a little bit of a shorter video today. This is episode number 6, Distance Learning, High School CTE Pathways. My name is Todd Evangelist, and I'm glad to have been with you today. If you have any questions, your teacher may have sent you another form or links to this. But once again, if you need links to those websites we were referencing, we post these on YouTube. And so if you're watching this via YouTube, down in the description below here, we have those bit.ly links to the websites that we were referencing earlier, and to that CTE offerings pathway. You can download that and go through that. So the goal, once again, is to identify the pathway at the high school that you're attending that most interests you the most, and why. And then for all you overachievers, go through that A through G list and find out, how many classes do you plan on taking in each letter while you're in high school, the 4 years that you're in high school? All right. Thanks a lot. Hope everything goes well for you.